radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah, good evening. How are you? Hi, it's Wednesday, September 26th, 2018. 272 days into the new year, just 93 days left. And as always, we are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of beautiful downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? Got a great show tonight. Julia Mossbridge is here. She's going to join us and talk about precognition and time travel with her new book. I'm holding it up to the cameras now. There it is. The Premonition Code. Oh, yeah. Like that cover? It's a great book, too. It's a great book. This is my stuff right here. That's what I'm all about. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Precog time travel. Tomorrow night, been waiting for this, Dean Radin is here. And I cannot wait. Science and magic and everything that he has been doing for so long. So important to this community. Dean Radin will be with us tomorrow night, which means no FADERNIGHT this week. That's right. No open lines. Nope. It's 4 nights, 4 shows, 4 amazing guests. That's what we chose to do this week here on Fade to Black. And there you go. And so let's just let's get the show cracking. We got a lot to do tonight. And on Stellar, head over there. You need to get registered. That is my social media platform of choice, onstellar.com, onstellar.com. Get over there, get registered. You can use my name as a referral code. You don't need a referral code, but I do it. So just use my name, Jimmy. It's you know somebody. You know me. Use my referral code. Get some bonus tokens. And get over there. See what it's all about. It is happening. Built for this community. Also, Twitter. You can follow me there. I'm a big social media guy. Love my social media. And I'm sure you've been watching me tweet all day long. Sitting here working in the bunker. You know, research. Right? Little of this, little of that, a little over here, reading, you know, writing, doing all social media, back over to writing, little social. It's just what I do. You know, it's what I do. Twitter is @JChurchRadio. And Facebook, I'm going to talk about Facebook in just a second. Still alive and kicking, you know, I still have an account over there. I'll go as far as that. And we do have the Fade to Black company page over on Facebook, and you can go and like that too as well. But and YouTube, of course, we hang out on YouTube every day. We post the next day. We'll post this broadcast, and it goes up in its entirety, unedited, every single day over on YouTube. So you can go and subscribe there. If you're a tuber, and that's where you want to go for your stuff, then, that's what you do. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. And there you go. All right. Everything is easy to find. Go over to our website, jimmychurchradio.com. Okay. And you can follow, like, and subscribe right there. And where am I at? The sandbox is hashtag F2B. It's right in front of me. And you guys are still retweeting that picture last night of Tsoukalos and Duchovny. Oh, man. I wonder, I think Tsoukalos is like in Brazil right now. So I don't know if he's on social media, but he'd love this pic. And the Faded Black banner in the background behind the two is pretty funny. And so that is still getting around. And that's what you do. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. It's right up in front of me. And we use TweetDeck. TweetDeck is amazing. TweetDeck is just it's all automated. You don't have to click. You don't have to click notifications or do anything. It's just all up and in front of you and just clicks by. I've got notifications for myself in one column. I have hashtag F2B in another. Then I have hashtag F2BQ in another column. Then, of course, Rita. So those are the four streams that I follow right there. Okay. All right. TweetDeck. And if you haven't gotten it, just go and find it and download it. I think it installs in your browser. I still have the old version that runs as a program. I think. I don't even know now. Been using it for so long. TweetDeck. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Okay. All right. Breaking news. Now, this is something, again, that is probably slipped under your radar, and that's why you're here, right? Because I bring you this kind of stuff. But breaking news, Google has finally admitted that a Project Dragonfly, air quotes, Project Dragonfly, is indeed in the works. Now, what is Project Dragonfly, you ask? Well, I'm going to tell you now. But that's all that Google's executives are saying right now. They were with this code name, Project Dragonfly. And it's been widely reported to be some type of search product or search engine that the company is developing for China. The prospect, the thought of a Google-sanctioned search engine for China sounds insane. It does, because it is. A Google product that would block websites and search terms in accordance with Chinese censorship is total Big Brother. It's very scary indeed. One of the, you just need to think about that. It's like it goes against all of our principles, right? But yet we will develop it for another country. Yeah. It just feels funky because it is. It's funky. Now, moving on from that, Project Dragonfly, go look it up. It's pretty interesting. One of the funniest posts I've ever read happened today on Facebook. Now, I didn't read it directly, as you know, because I don't hang out on Facebook anymore, but it was tweeted, and I caught it there. And it was something about, and I dismissed it immediately, by the way, but it was something about how Gaia TV, is trying to trademark the word disclosure. Right? Now, posting something like this is, well, it's funny. And it's funny for many reasons, but the main one is that our community is emotional. And disclosure means so much to us all, right? And whatever the meaning of the word is for us or individuals, disclosure is a big word, right? So you go and you turn around and say, how do I say this right? I want to say this in a polite way. So when some doofus decides to imply that Gaia is trying to own the word, right? Well, our community is emotional. So it's like, how evil, right? And it's just crazy. Because first off, listen. First off, you can try to trademark whatever you want. Go for it. Whatever. You want to pay to have something trademarked and you achieve the trademark and you're granted a trademark, go for it. Nobody cares. But you can't own a word. Let's be clear here. And what Gaia is probably doing, and I don't have any insight to this, but Gaia isn't any different than any other company or corporation. What they are probably doing, and they are well within their right to do so, is protect their stuff. That's it. Productions, work, whatever, that may contain the word disclosure. It's like end of story. I mean, oh man. They're going to own disclosure. Well, look, I've got breaking news for not only the doofus that did the post on Facebook, but anybody else out there that's freaking out. We'll be releasing our own film titled Disclosure next week. And nobody's going to do anything about it because they can't. They won't. Seriously, everybody just calm down. The word disclosure is used in all forms of media, conversation, articles, and probably baby food. Every single day, every second of everything that is on this planet, and it's just like done. But messing with this community's emotions by posting total BS for whatever reason on Facebook is a big bowl of wrong. And you need to think about that. That is all. Subscribe to our podcast. It's just $2 a month. Go to jimmychurchradio.com. It's right there. Click on the podcast banner. You can also become a FADERNIGHT. I know you want to be. You want to be a FADERNIGHT, and you can do that over in our membership section of the site. You can do whatever you want to do. You can get downloadable archives that are commercial free. You can do that. You can get hats and shirts and autographs and all that fun stuff. Whatever you want, it's right there in our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. And when you're over there, don't forget to visit all of our sponsors. All you have to do is click on their banners, go check out their websites, and support the show. It's really that simple. They all have promo codes for special discounts just for you because you are FADERNIGHTs, and that's what keeps this show running every single day. All right, let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Olivia Newton-John is 70. Are we getting old? All right, think about Greece for a second. Just think about Greece. Are we getting old when Olivia Newton-John is 70? Now, I know she's going through some cancer issues once again in her life. That press release came out last week. And our thoughts and prayers are with Olivia. And happy birthday. All right, 70 years old. On this day in history, OTD, 1996. U.S. astronaut Shannon Lucid returns to Earth in the space shuttle Atlantis, following 6 months in orbit aboard the Russian space station Mir. She was the first American woman to live in a space station. And it happened on this day in 1996. Fader fact. Okay, here you go. Write this one down. And my facts here get more unbelievable every day. And here's one for you. The Cult Awareness Network. You may have heard of them. You may remember them. The Cult Awareness Network once listed Scientology as its #1 most dangerous cult. They did. And then Scientology bought them out in a hostile takeover. That's a fact. Seriously. Look that one up. That's the one you're going to whip out at a party this weekend. I guarantee it. That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Tonight, very special guest, Julia Mossbridge is here. And we're going to talk about precognition and time travel with her new book, The Premonition Code. I'm going to hold it up right there. The links to the book are over at jimmychurchradio.com. It's an incredible book and one that needs to be read. And just even if you get this book for the opening paragraph of chapter 1, it's worth its weight in gold right there. Okay? That opening chapter, man. It's good. And that's our guest tonight. Tomorrow night, Dean Radin is here. And again, I need to emphasize, no FADERNIGHT this week. No open lines. We haven't done that, I think, in like ever on this show. But we've got 4 nights, 4 shows, 4 amazing guests. All right. Now, tonight, we're going to discuss time travel and precognition. And there, okay, thanks, Rita. There are 2 things that I like to talk about. My favorite, I mean, you know, yes, I have guitars. I love to talk guitars. I love to talk music, movies, and Egypt. Right? These are things that you know, lost history and all of that. But time travel and precognition are 2 of my favorite things. Seriously, and I research what I can when I can. I watch every time travel movie. Drives Rita nuts, man. I'll search time travel movies. And I'll get a list going, and seriously, I don't know how we pulled it off, but we've seen every one, right? And I'm always looking for something else that I haven't seen. And you know what I saw last night, actually? Late. I couldn't sleep, and I found Time Travel Zero, the movie about John Titor. I've been waiting for that, and I happened to find it. I watched that last night at 3 o'clock in the morning. Time Travel Zero. But I watch them all. Good, bad, you know, doesn't matter. Like Time Travel Zero. It was bad. It was fun to watch, though. There are so many ways to time travel. And I was thinking about this last night, reading Julia's book. And I started to compile in my own mind's eye some thoughts here for tonight, because these are important things to talk about. There are so many ways to time travel. And last month, Richard Dolan was on the show, and we talked about it and talked about time travel. And his main concern is that if time travel, because he doesn't buy, you know, time travel as being a reality, at least the nuts and bolts side of it, right? And if somebody time traveled, according to Richard Dolan, then the entire universe would too. Right? And his view is correct, by the way. In that instance, or the way that he is choosing to look at it, you know, it's absolutely correct. Because he's talking about changing time, moving time around. And that would require enormous amounts of energy, probably more than is even available in the entire universe, right? You know, move that everybody, everything, every planet, everything has got to just go backwards in time and live it over. And then what happens to the people in the future and what happens, you know, all of that. Well, you know, he's right. But there are so many more versions of time travel. And the obvious, I mean, the obvious, the most easiest and already proven, sort of, is Einstein and relativity. Because you just hop on a ship. That's all you do. You hop on a ship, you take off, fly away from Earth, get up to the speed of light, and then turn around and come back. That's all you have to do. And depending on how long you're gone, would determine about how much time has passed here on Earth. But one thing is for sure, that everything, everything that you have ever known will be gone. Hundreds, if not thousands of years would pass. You know, it just depends on how long you're gone, that round trip. But you would be a time traveler. You'd be a couple of years older, right? Sure, but you just traveled into the future 1,000 years. Now, how cool is that? Well, the answer is very, right? And I get that. In fact, sign me up. I would do it. I would do it in a second, and Rita would too. But now you would be stuck there. No way to get back, right? I hope the food is good, by the way. But you jumped on a ship and came back. No time machine. You just cruised. No technology. You just cruised, right? Now, the question gets more complicated of an actual time machine. H.G. Wells style. That is something altogether different. And this kind of goes back a little bit to what Richard Dolan was talking about. John Titor, right? Don't get me started on that. I got Titor on the brain after Time Traveler Zero. But is it possible? Absolutely it is. It's 100% possible. And before you ask, why? Well, first off, nobody can say that it's impossible. They can't. Right? And another form of time travel is the mind. Time traveling with the mind. And I like that one. I do. No time machine needed, right? What about seeing the past or the future with a visual aid, and using technology to access that, maybe view it on a flat screen or the famous chronovisor? You have that aspect of it too. George Van Tassel talked about everything being recorded in our atmosphere and that we could view things going back 7 years, and that he built a machine to do it right here, by the way, in Southern California in downtown Santa Monica. He talked about that and recording it, pulling it out of the ether, that everything is there. After 7 years, it goes away. These ideas wouldn't require the physical body to go anywhere. And of course, eat up that Richard Dolan-sized energy requirements. But we have to remember a few things here. The Earth is rotating. I need a visual aid for the, I'll use my skull, right, for the camera. The Earth is rotating. We know that, right? Okay. Every 24 hours a day, right? Earth is rotating. But then the Earth is rotating around the sun, too, as well. I'll grab a bigger skull. This big, heavy one, right? So we know this, right? This is what's going on all the time. So, and you have space involved. So if this is going on, and then this is going on at the same time, how do you make sure that you just get things done correctly and you land where you need to land? And if you're going to be disappearing and reappearing, teleporting, and then even throwing time traveling into the mix, and not messing anything up, that's really, really big technology. Dolan is not wrong. Well, he never is, but in this case, he's really not wrong. But that doesn't mean that it hasn't been solved in the future. And I know this gets a little bit complicated, but listen to this. See, if Rita and I did take off at the speed of light and we returned 10,000 years from now and we managed to somehow make it back to Earth, right? Earth is moving. But we come back to Earth 10,000 years from now, but maybe we're 10 years older. But we find out 10,000 years from now that they've got time machines, that they've figured it out, and that we don't have to be bummed out. We don't have to be stuck in the future with the bad food, right? With the all vegan processed diet. No, we don't, out of a toothpaste tube. No. And they would return us back to here in time for FADERNIGHT. It could happen. Seriously. And that's why I enjoy time travel. The thought of it and the possibility of precog, to be able to predict the future and to know the future and to see the future. I think all of this is not only a reality, it's very, very possible. And if we just go down to the very basics of Einstein and relativity, that version of time travel doesn't require a time machine and lasers and heat. No, it requires getting up to the speed of light, but that is all possible. That's all real. Back to John Titor. One of the main reasons his story may be true, and I talk about this, is that nobody has gotten caught. There is too much stuff to be fabricated. Not the story, well, that too, but it's the time machine, it's the graphics, it's the manuals, it's the artwork. Today, it's pretty easy to pull off. Okay, you can do it. But 20 years ago, not so much. You would have had too many people involved, that artists and engineers and scientists and science fiction writers, personalities, computer experts. You would have to have all of that, as well as model fabricators and all of those things to pull this off, right? But nobody involved, if that is the case, if it was just some giant hoax done for fun, nobody cracked and nobody came forward. And the more complex something is when you're trying to keep something a secret, and the more people involved, the higher the possibility that somebody's going to crack. Somebody would have been able to come forward about the John Titor story and been more famous than John Titor and the story itself. And they could have disclosed everything. Here's the time machine. Here's the car we shot it in. Here's the garage we did it. Here's the computers that we did. Here's the sign. Here's how we did this. Here's how we made the graphics. Here's how we wrote the manuals. We did all this, how we uploaded it. Here's our IP addresses. This is how we did it. This is why we did Florida. And this, all of it. It would have been an amazing story, and somebody would have been really famous. But that never happened. So the possibility is there. There's no way to say that it didn't happen, just like anything else. You can't predict. You just can't. You can't do it. You can't. You can't. So think about that for a second. The future, time travel, you don't need a time machine. You just don't. And if you were able to pull that off and come back in 10,000 years, there's no telling what. And there's no time machine involved. And suddenly we have time travelers that are coming back here. Think about that. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Julia Mossbridge. We're talking about her new book, The Premonition Code. That's right. Precognition and time travel all night tonight on Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be right back with tonight's guest, Julia Mossbridge. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at jimmychurchradio.com.
Times are changing. The circus of politics, healthcare's low standards and high prices, and let's not forget food quality. What to do? Arm yourself with Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. In a world of chemical imbalance and poor air and water quality, it's time you make a move. Log on to getthetea.com and stock up on organic non-GMO supplements. Don't forget the tea. Cleansing your body never felt so good. And we have a brand new tea called Takedown Tea, which helps support healthy glucose. All natural body support so you can be at your best, naturally. All you have to do is log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. We're not a fad that comes and goes. We are the real deal. Join us and armor up. Getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Changing America's health one tea bag at a time.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find Fast Start Diet on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code TALK to get 10% off your first box. And as a special bonus, Fast Start will include their #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. This is Jimmy Church. And whatever your diet plans are, do what I did. Go to faststartdiet.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. 4 shows, 4 nights, 4 guests this week. Tonight, Julia Mossbridge. Tomorrow night, Dean Radin is here. Tonight, we're going to discuss precognition and time travel, my 2 favorite subjects. Well, that and the Great Pyramid and maybe a good taco truck, but precog and time travel. Julia Mossbridge, PhD, is a futurist trained in cognitive neuroscience. She's a fellow at the Institute of Noetic Sciences and a visiting scholar at Northwestern University in the Department of Psychology. Dr. Mossbridge is the co-author of Transcendent Mind, one of the first academic books to examine paranormal experiences, published by American Psychological Association in 2017. Her research focus is precognition and the possibility of time travel. I am excited, and I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Dr. Julia Mossbridge. Dr. Julia Mossbridge. I don't know where to go. Can I go with Julia?
Please.
Okay, good.
Thanks for having me on the show, Jimmy. This is really an honor.
Oh, no, thank you so much. But before we move forward, you get the first-time guest disclaimer. So let's do that now and get that out of the way. You ready?
Great.
Okay. It's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. Where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. That's it, right?
Sounds great.
Okay, good. I don't know where to start with you because there is so much to cover in way too many directions, and I can do all of that with you. So I'm going to kind of keep it simple. But the first thing that I've got to get out of the way, in academia, in professional academia, when you're dealing with things like precog and time travel, and I know you get this all the time, and you think about it probably all the time, it's not a chosen career path for most. And why did you decide? It's difficult. I've got to know, why?
Yeah, on sort of the easy answer is probably not the true answer, but it's a good story, which is that, and it's partly true, I guess, is that since I was a kid, I've had experiences out of the linear order of what they tell us time is supposed to be. So we're supposed to have this order of past, present, future, and we're in the present and we remember the past, and the future is the thing that hasn't happened yet. And since I was a kid, I would have these sort of knowings about future events in my waking life, or dreams that would play out in detail over the next, day or so. And I really got it at an early age that what I was being told about time wasn't what the truth was about time. And so when you have personal experiences like that, and you have a scientific sort of bent to the way you think, or the way you sort of want to be in the world, or what turns you on, it's very likely that you end up studying this. So that's sort of the story that's, I guess, partially true. The other part of it is, I feel like there's almost a call from the future that I can't ignore. This is the more mystical part.
Now we're talking. Okay.
Well, we're sitting on the couch, right?
Right. John Titor sent you an email, is what you're saying. So, and I think that part is great, and I understand it. But what about your colleagues? I mean, would you divulge that part of it? It's one thing to research time travel. Physicists are doing it, and precognition, and trying to figure out quantum theory and mechanics and relativity. Okay, all right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. But would you discuss your reasons for doing it with your colleagues?
Yeah, well, so it depends. I do it on a case-by-case basis. So
right.
So it just depends on how open-minded the person is, with whom I'm speaking, and what I notice actually is that the higher the status the person in science, the more likely they are to have an open mind, because they don't have as much to sort of lose. And so they're just like, sure, okay, tell me about that. Well, how do you think about this? Well, what about this? And we can have a conversation about it, because they're also, when you get to the higher levels of scientists, they've kind of gotten used to the idea that they don't really understand everything.
Right.
And so they're a little bit more at peace with that. They don't know the rules of the way nature works. So it's much easier to have that conversation with them. But I still, like the mystical piece, I only say that to a few people, and apparently a bunch of people who listen to your show.
Well, that may be true, but there's another thing that I'm rather enjoying today. Science went through a couple of really cool phases, and probably 50, 60 years ago, things were happening at a very fast clip. And those physicists and the theoretical physicists and the astronomers of the world thought that they were understanding it all and they had it figured out. Mm-hmm. Today, they have found out that actually they know nothing. And that's I think it's a brilliant place to be, that they know now that everything that they thought that they understood about, they were coming to terms with gravity. They were coming to terms with time and space-time and atomics and subatomic particles, and all of these things were just happening, and now they don't even know what holds an atom together.
Right. And it's sort of, in a way, it's like, actually what has happened is sort of the mainstream physicists and scientists have caught up to what the vanguard already knew long ago. Like, if you listen to Richard Feynman's lectures on quantum mechanics, I've been listening to them lately, and I just came across something he said the other day when I was listening, where he said something like, look, we don't know, I can explain to you quantum mechanics until, I'm blue in the face, essentially, but we don't know any underlying principles that are causing we don't know why this is the consequence of that. We can just tell you what happens.
I listen to his lectures every night, and he that whole group, by the way, when you start to get into that part of academia and you're listening to them, I think it's so fascinating where they go, the math of string theory and quantum mechanics works. We can't get it to mess up, but we don't know why.
Well, we don't know why. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. So I feel like people are starting to now catch, people who maybe aren't at that level but are learning from that level are starting to get, now wait a minute, there's so many open questions, and I love this phase. The phase of not knowing, I think, is the most fruitful phase in science.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, okay, let's break a couple of ideas down. I try to understand every type of time travel there could be, or precognition, because there's physical, there's the mind, there's time machines, and there's all kinds of ideas, right? And relativity to me is the best foundation of it all. But with all of the tripping that I have done on this subject over the years, your opening paragraph in your new book is
Premonition Code. Yeah.
Yes, in the Premonition Code. I'm not going to read the entire paragraph. I would love to, but the way that your mind works for you to think up this scene. I'm talking about the car sales.
I love that scene.
Okay. Your mind works in a way that I think is very, very clever, because this is a presentation of precog and what it could mean in real life that I don't think anybody has really put together before. So I'm not going to read the paragraph. You know what I'm talking about here. And certainly I'll set up the end of it, which is, if you're going to die in the car, you can't buy it. Okay. Now, to get to that, tell us about that opening paragraph. What is it about? Explain it to the audience, and I'm just going to sit back and enjoy myself, because I think it's really well done.
Thanks. Well, I've been thinking for much of my life about what if we really understood that precognition is not only a scientific phenomenon, but it's very common, and that it can actually be developed. And I was like, okay, what would that be like? Well, we would have something that I like to call the precog economy, which is you've got people who know it's their job and get paid for using their well-developed precognition for various purposes. Well, what can we use that for? Well, so one example is a car company might want to hire someone who literally sits with you when you decide you want to purchase a car, and goes into a special state where they can access information about probabilities of future events. And they go, okay, I clear you because, you're going to have a fender bender, but really no big deal. And they let you go on your way, and you could actually reduce accidents that way for the car company. Or what if there was a person who was working at, for instance, a hospital, and their job was to go into the state where they could get information about future events and look at the probabilities of needing a certain number of doctors at certain times during the week, in the coming week. And so their job is to plan out the ebb and the flow of the emergency room doctors and nurses, just based on their precognition. right? I mean, so that you could go almost every human problem that we have, if you have information about the probabilities of future events, you can actually address that problem. So I just thought of something that would be fun if you had someone who's literally sitting in a hammock and you have to wait until she hops out of the hammock and tells you you're okay to go ahead and buy the car before you can buy the car, and then everyone's happy. So that was just one example of sort of many that you could imagine. Certainly there would be jobs where you would be a precog trainer for children and find out the people who had really excellent gifts and then help foster that and then help them move into a career. Well, maybe they're working for the UN on the Positive Precog Council, where they're helping people avoid terrorist attacks in certain countries, or they're helping prevent something that is seen maybe 20 or 30 years down the line in terms of environmental change. So there's all sorts of ways that if you start thinking about that we can get probabilities of future events, that we can actually shape our lives for the better and help the world.
And the couple is sitting, and I really enjoyed the visuals of this, looking at the awards, right, for the salesperson in the background.
Yeah, what did I put on there?
Yeah, one of them was airbags, right? Yeah. And I just thought, this actually makes a lot of sense, right? And so as a couple that's always nervous and apprehensive about buying a car, but they picked out this car, they fell in love with it. Now you've got to have a relationship with the salesperson. You've got to build up that trust, right? And so they're looking at the awards and they're feeling pretty good about it. Well, she knows she's got precog abilities with airbags and she's won awards. This is a good thing. But what if she, the ultimate question, what if she comes back and says, you're going to die in this car, and so I can't sell it to you because it reflects badly on the car company.
Yeah.
And so let's go pick out something else.
Right.
And what a smart way to put all of this together, where precog in science fiction is one thing, but this is a real life scenario that I could see actually playing out.
Right. That's why I stuck it at the beginning of the book, because I wanted to get people to see sort of the way this could be sort of normalized.
It's a really well thought out way, because I got grounded with it and I couldn't wait to finish the book. I just thought, wow, the picture is painted really well here. Nice. But now, what is the difference between precognition, which is a pretty serious thing, as opposed to something everyday like deja vu that everybody tends to experience?
Right. Well, okay, so let's talk about that. So deja vu is traditionally thought of as being, it's traditionally thought of among sort of neuroscientists, I guess, that you're receiving information through your sensory system and you're sort of labeling it like, oh, this is now, this is now, this is now. And you're also labeling it with, oh, this is familiar, this is familiar, this is familiar, as soon as you've experienced something. Right? Oh, that thing, that was something I experienced a minute ago. That's familiar. So that's a label. So it has the label of now, and when you've experienced it, it has the label of familiar. And so the idea that sort of thought in neuroscientific circles of what happens in deja vu is you're experiencing something now that also has the familiar label. And that's a little bit of a paradox, because it's usually either now or familiar, but not both. Mm-hmm. Right? So then the idea is that either your brain has slipped up and has labeled something now that is actually something you experienced in the past, and it's just representing, it's like showing you a movie clip that you just saw by mistake, or it's labeling something as familiar that's not familiar, that is actually happening now. But a third option could be that it's in fact precognition.
Right.
So most of the neuroscientific community doesn't go for that third option. And there's good reason for that, because you can stimulate someone's brain and make them have a deja vu experience. And we know that that's not precognition. So it's definitely the case that there are deja vu experiences that are not precognition. But the other reason why neuroscientists tend not to think about it is most of them don't understand that there's evidence, actual rigorous scientific evidence supporting that precognition is a thing, right? So most of them don't know that. And so they wouldn't consider it.
Yeah, and to not consider it being precog or something fantastical, right?
Yeah.
Is an excuse and an easy way out. Probably because they don't want to be challenged and they want to just make it easy and move off of the subject because they're not comfortable with it. That's probably it. But it's also cheapening what the experience actually is. Because I think that, when I have a deja vu, when most people have a real deja vu when it's going down, it's something that's extraordinary. And you're one step ahead of the future and you're watching it play out in front of you. And you know that that's what the experience actually is. And you step back going, how can this happen? The future isn't supposed to be known, but I know what's about to happen, and it could be also, Julia, a great length of time. It could be seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds ahead, ginormous amounts of time that you are ahead of what's going on and you're watching it play out. And you know that isn't some familiar connection happening with past memories or whatever neuroscientist is going to give you the excuse for.
Well, I mean, I could say for sure that you have the experience that everyone who has deja vu has this experience that something strange is going on, but it is, sort of provably the case that in some cases that really is your brain playing a trick. And the reason that that's provably the case is because you could literally stimulate the brain and cause people to have that experience. So you can cause the brain to play that trick. But the problem is that a lot of people make the leap from that experiment to saying that in every case it's your brain playing a trick on you. And that's what I think we have to be careful about, is say no, just what you were saying. In some cases this is a real prediction. But if it is a real precognition, then you should be able to do an experiment where you are able to predict the future event at a rate greater, than chance. Right?
And how do you do this?
Yeah, so that's the kind of experimenting that we do in the lab. We don't use deja vu because it's so spontaneous. It's hard to capture in the lab. But we can do these experiments. There's kind of two kinds. There's one that's called an explicit or conscious precognition experiment, where we consciously are asking you to consciously sit around and answer the question, what do you think is going to happen next? Right? Essentially.
Right.
So that's a conscious precognition experiment. Then there's the unconscious or implicit precognition experiments, which are about, we're going to have you look at some things on a screen and press some buttons, and it's all just a cognitive task, and we're not telling you, or maybe we're only telling you afterwards, that it turns out what we were testing was precognition, but there's no way you could have known that consciously. So those are the two different kinds, and it turns out they have very different properties. So in terms of fast precognition, like the time frame of like milliseconds to seconds.
Right.
The unconscious precognition seems to dominate on average among people. If you don't select for people who are really good.
Right.
And then for longer time frames, like an hour, days, weeks, conscious precognition seems to dominate. So if I want to know what's going on a week from now, I better have some kind of skill at going into the state where I can get that information and then sketching it out or whatever I do, to record it. That's really conscious precognition. But you could do those experiments in the lab too by literally asking someone to do that and then not deciding until after they've turned in their work what the actual target is. So no one on the planet would know what the target is, so that it's not like they could get the information from someone else. So they do their work, and then you use a random number generator to predict what the target's going to be. But you only do that after they've turned in their work. So there's no cheating. And even you as the experimenter can't give them some kind of clues because you don't know either.
I know that there are precogs walking this planet right now with extreme talent and gifts.
For sure.
Have you met one? And
more than one.
Okay,
yes.
well, hold on. Well, you haven't heard the rest of the question.
Sorry, I got excited.
And how valuable would that talent be?
Right. Well, I can tell you almost literally how valuable it is. People are using precog abilities right now to predict stock market changes with great effect. And there's a group that is paying people to do that. And they make money according to how well they perform. So, if you're at 60% correct, you're making a certain amount of money. If you're at 70, you're making more, 80 more, 90 more, etc. And you can find out about this. If anyone's interested, check out the Applied Precognition Project, which is a project of Marty Rosenblatt, a great guy who is pulling together a bunch of different people, teaching them how to do what he calls associated remote viewing, but I call it controlled precognition because that's really what it is, where you sit down and you're actually sketching out an image that you're going to see, but the image is associated with stock market changes. So we can get enough people looking at a future image, and if enough people are sketching a tree, for instance, and he knows that a tree is associated with an upward movement of the stock market, he can bet on that. And he's done very well and created returns for himself and others. He shares all the information with other people at rates far above what you would expect just on the market. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and then, we all go naturally, it's the modern society that we have today, to Minority Report. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, and there's an example of you better not be wrong in your precog.
Right. So pre-crime division. So in that movie, good old Tom Cruise, he's leading the pre-crime division, and there's this great scene where a philosophical moment where this ball comes down the chute and it tells them, okay, this is the Minority Report. This shows us who is in disagreement about which of the precogs is in disagreement about something, and that indicates where there's some kind of problem about a future event, if I remember that correctly.
That's right.
Yeah, okay. And in that moment, he says, look, the future is going to happen, and all we are here to do is to prevent it, which is, of course, paradoxical, right? If the future is going to happen, what do you mean you're there to prevent it? How does that work? But in any case, what they end up showing in the movie is that the future is not written in stone. You can't go arrest someone before they commit a crime and make the assumption that they're going to commit the crime with 100% probability. And I think that's a pretty responsible thing for them to have done with that movie, because regardless of whatever the physics end up turning out to be, and of course there's the perpetual argument about whether there's some kind of block universe where everything's set in stone or whether things are more probabilistic. But whatever the physics end up being, we know that psychologically it does not work for people to think that the future is set in stone. It does not help people. And the more you polish your precognitive skills, and I've been working on this as a habit and sort of as a practice now every day, and I've gotten better and better, which is nice. But in any case, the more you practice your precognitive skills, the more you recognize that you better have what I call a time worldview. So I've created something called the positive precog time worldview. So in the book, Premonition Code, we call positive precogs people who are using their precognition to help the world or trying to do that. And a time worldview is how you view time. And it really impacts your psychological health, how you view time. And so some of the components of the positive precog time worldview are not believing that the future is set in stone and not believing that you're always 100% correct about whatever you perceive. Those two things are really important psychologically.
How easy is it for you? I've got 15 seconds to ask this question. How easy is it for you to go into the precog state?
Well, it's getting easier and easier just with practice, and I think that's true for anyone. And we built out our website to help support people in that practice, and I can talk with you about that a little more at length if you'd like.
Yeah, we'll do that when we come back, but I'm setting you up, okay?
Okay.
And so you should have known that.
Well,
in that, okay, we're gonna take a break here for about 3.5 minutes for commercial. Okay. I want you to think about the question that I'm going to ask you when we come back, and that question, I'm just going to throw a bone. That question is going to be about me. So you think about that, Julia. This is Fade to Black.
You're asking me to be psychic on the air. Okay.
No, you need to think about the question that I am going to ask. That's all. It's very simple. I'm going to have fun with this. It's going to be really good. And the answer is going to freak you out. So think about that. Yeah, where am I going? This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dr. Julia Mossbridge. We're talking about her new book, The Premonition Code. I've held it up for the camera. I'll do it again right now. We'll be right back after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Reclaim your active lifestyle with AngioPrim. AngioPrim is the original liquid oral chelation supplement. Chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in your veins and arteries that can cause blockages. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in AngioPrim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. Find out more. Go to angioprim.com. Talk to a trained consultant by calling AngioPrim toll-free 877-882-7221.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official FADERNIGHT by just going to our membership section at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hey, it's Grace. Can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at nature'syouth.com. nature'syouth.com. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only use night vision goggles from Bearing Optics. You can see your very own green chrome balls today by clicking on their banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Very simple. Join in on the conversation right over there. A few thousand tweets will happen tonight. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Our guest tonight, Julia Mossbridge, PhD. We're talking about her new book, The Premonition Code. And now the Precog, Julia, was not leaked with me talking to you during the break, but I did slip. I wanted to bring up your co-author is Teresa Chung. Tell us about Teresa.
Yeah, it was leaked because a little bit.
Yes.
Teresa is this pretty amazing woman who mostly has spent decades gathering anecdotal reports of precognition, life after death, contact with people who are in other locations, so telepathic stories, things like this. Anything that's unusual, she records the stories and she writes books about it. But she got we got together on a project a couple of years ago, and she's heard about my work at the Institute of Noetic Sciences and just the work at the Institute of Noetic Sciences in general. And she was wanting the folks in the UK to hear about that work because most of the belief in the UK has been similar to the US, where it's the opinion is this is just anecdotal stuff that happens to people and there's no science behind it. And that's part of why she approached me to do this book too. She just wants the world to know not only there's science, there's practice, there's online resources to help you, and this is a way of life and actually a pretty cool community of people.
Now, now back to the Precog.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lay it on me.
Nothing came to you? Nothing popped in your head?
Yeah, you know what popped into my head? So just so you know, most of my skill is as a scientist, and I'm developing my skill as a precog. So I would not call myself the most advanced precog you'll ever meet. Having said that, what popped into my head was a bear.
Really? Okay. Now I'm wondering if there's a connection. Because this is, I'm going to hold this up to the camera. That is the answer. The answer is Great Lakes. Now,
I don't know about that.
Okay. I was born at Great Lakes Naval Station in Waukegan.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to tell the audience what the connection is, but I was just wondering if, the vibe of the universe would somehow connect that for you and how great it would have been. So that, it would have been.
Well, the only associate, so if we want to stretch this, so if I was scoring this as an independent judge, I might say this is basically bogus, but nonetheless, what I'll just tell you is that I grew up in Libertyville, Illinois, very close to the Great Lakes Naval Station. And when my parents would sometimes go camping, we would go up around there, and I was always scared of bears. So you go. Now, there's no bears around there.
You know what's so funny, because that's my neighborhood, right? Libertyville, Mundelein, of course, Waukegan, Great Lakes Naval Station, that whole part of, and for you to say Libertyville, look, that's really trippy. Look, for the audience, they don't get it, but when you bring up we're talking about little tiny towns here, right?
And these are teeny tiny towns.
Yeah, Libertyville, Mundelein. Okay, now, but let's talk about, Teresa and you, when we're dealing with premonition and the future. Then, and you've said paradox now 3 or 4 times, then if all of that, and I believe it to be reality, but then free will is taken out, right? It's like taken right off of the table at that point. And now we've got this conundrum in the community. Wait a minute, free will is, but if the future is real and premonition and precognition is a reality, then free will is just an illusion. It's going to just take you to where you were going to be anyway. You think you are making decisions, but precognition and premonitions, if you have a premonition about your own future in a dream, right, and you alter your life, there's no free will coming into play here. Right? Am I correct?
Well, So there's two there's kind of two answers. There's sort of the mainstream answer, and then there's the trippy answer. So the mainstream answer is, look, what if precognition is about looking at probabilities? So you have a dream about a car accident, and that's a yellow car, and you're on the highway, and it's a horrible accident, and you wake up and you're in a cold sweat and you're scared. And then the next day you're on the highway, you see a yellow car and you avoid it, and it hits someone else. And so you go, wow, I actually changed what was going to happen. So it's possible the dream was literally like a warning, tapping into a future event that actually wasn't going to happen. Or the probability was that someone was going to bump into this car, and your mind turned it into you to help you get into a place where it wasn't you, right?
Right.
And so if you think of the world as probabilities, you're actually making a choice, and you can have this free will experience of, I made this choice to do this because based on the probabilities, I shifted where I was relative to the event, right? So the event happened, so that was destined, or whatever people want to call it, but my position relative to the event was different. So that's one way to think about it. That's kind of a standard way to sort of keep free will in the conversation. So another way to think about it is, if you don't think about time as necessarily linear, free will doesn't have to be linear either. And so you could say, I have free will over if you look at the course of your life as a blob in time, I have free will over the whole course of my life. At some point, I decided this is how it's going to go. That doesn't mean in this particular moment I can change anything, but the entire decision of how each event will go is at some point, maybe in the past, maybe in the future, decided by me, or at least I have some influence on it. And so that's a more trippy way of thinking about this, and I don't know what's true.
Well, if you have some precognition or premonition, and that is, you are going to be a doctor. You see yourself as being a doctor. But today you are a bacchanal artist, right? The opposite. You are not college bound, and you're not looking at college, right? But 30 years from now, for some reason, whatever it is, now you're a doctor. That, you know what I mean? Where's free will in that? In you see the vision of and you can't change it, right? You can't, no matter what you want to do to change it. Ultimately, you are going to be a doctor, and any decision that you make isn't going to alter that path.
Right. I guess what I'm saying, so first of all, a bacchanal artist is a really cool career option. So I just want to put that out there. Second, I mean, I am jealous of that career option. Second, so you may not have free. So if you think of a timeline, and this is time 0 is this current moment, let's say. At time 0, you may not have any free will about that future doctor job that you'll have. But it's possible that at time, minus 10, or at time plus 2000, you have free will about it. In other words, if you keep thinking about time as linear and it marches forward, and only one thing that I decide now can influence the thing in the future, then that impacts how you feel about free will and when free will has to happen for it to be free will. But if you think about time as nonlinear, and you kind of look up and you float up in the sky and you look down on time like a map or something that's spatial. Imagine having free will from the position of a bird looking down at a map and saying, where am I going to land next? Where am I going to land next? And it not having to be linear. That's a different kind of free will, but it's still free will. It's just not operating in linear time. And that's what I'm trying to say.
And what's the difference between a premonition and just a cool dream?
Yeah. So not all premonitions or precognitions are in dreams. So there's a couple types, right? So most of them are when you start talking about this stuff, they say, oh, I had this dream that my grandmother died and that she died the next day and she wasn't even sick and it was really freaky. And that's one of the most common experiences of precognitions. But it has to be a precognition, to be considered a genuine precognition, if it's spontaneous in your life and not in the lab, you have to have a couple characteristics. And even then, you're not 100% sure really until you're in the lab, right? But you have to have a couple characteristics and to at least be considered a genuine precognition. And one is you have to have enough details that match between your experience, whether it's a dream or a waking vision or intuition, your experience and the event. So if you just dream that someone comes and knocks on your door, and the next day someone comes and knocks on your door, that's just not enough correspondences to say that was precognitive. People come and knock on your door perhaps every day, right?
Right.
So not a big deal. So, okay, let's say there's two. You dream that someone comes and knocks on your door and they ask you to borrow some cheese. And then if the next day that happens, that's more convincing, especially if it's not like every Thursday your neighbor comes and asks to borrow some cheese, right? So it also has to be something that you can't predict based on past history. So you start to build up sort of like a series of rules by which you have to judge the precognitive experience to see, was it really precognitive, or is this my subconscious just using the information that I normally have in my memory and assembling something? And once you start to get a hang of that, you start to look at the precognitive experiences differently and recognize that they have a different quality to them. They tend to be very vivid, very realistic for precognitive dreams, or sometimes precognitive compulsions where you feel like you have to take a certain action. And you feel like you better do it and you don't really know why, and sort of your intuition is just yelling at you to do something, and then you do it, and then you find out, whoa, I either did something really positive or I, avoided a really bad situation. This happens a lot to people in the military who have survived. So once you have that experience, you start to notice it more and more, and notice the sort of characteristic of just knowing rather than thinking or obsessing over something, which is very different.
Yeah, well, if I sit and think, if anybody just had a thought pop in their head, that tomorrow somebody's going to knock on the door and ask me for cheese, and that actually comes to pass, somebody's going to have a heart attack. I mean, that's a pretty big deal. And what's really strange is, as crazy of a thought that may be, and it is, I would have a heart attack, but yet every single day, somebody somewhere thinks of, man, I haven't talked to Bob in 10 years. I wonder how Bob is doing.
And then Bob is right there on the email.
And then 5 minutes later, the phone rings.
Yeah.
Right? Well, that happens all the time, and that doesn't cause heart attacks.
No.
You know what I mean? And that's
because it's one correspondence. The thing is, there's something about having more than one correspondence that really freaks us out. Like, I had this one precognitive dream about an apartment that I ended up moving into, and there were 5 correspondences between my dream and the circumstances around the apartment. And that really, I was already having precognitive experiences all the time, but that really just I said, I don't know how to explain this. That was as intense, statistically intense, as the guy in Virginia who dreams about 5 numbers and enters the lottery 4 times the next day and wins. Mm-hmm. That's statistically bizarre.
So, yeah, and for this is what fascinates me so much about this. There are people out there, and I discuss this nearly every day on the show. There are people out there that don't think that there's anything else to life but getting up in the morning, going to work, coming home, watching TV, having dinner, going to bed, rinse and repeat. That there is no life after death. There is no ETs. There are no, right? We're completely alone in the universe. There is nothing else to life. When you die, you turn into dust. And that's it. But yet they will accept the fact that Bob, who they haven't called or talked to in 10 years, and they think about him and he calls, or they have a deja vu, they don't think that it's anything special. And you can't convince them otherwise.
Well, right. Some people are just destined to be boring, but it's okay. We can all live happier lives.
That's always my answer. How boring. I can't imagine living life that way. How boring could it be? Now, again, I want to get back to some of your comments. One of those is the paradox situation when we're dealing with not only precog, but certainly time travel. And after the break, when we come back, we'll start to talk about time travel. But paradoxes enter into all of this. And it allows the scientific community out there to go, well, see, that's why it's not real.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And, well, so what's your response to, a colleague of yours that would say, well, paradoxes make all of this impossible?
Well, I would point them to other colleagues who say, no, you just have to deal with the paradox, and it's not actually a paradox. So there's a bunch of physicists who are thinking about these kind of problems because thinking about causal loops in time is a hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
And so the causal loop in time is like a push me, pull you sort of situation where the past is influencing the present and the future is influencing the past. And so you have this nice little circle. And so there's this grandfather paradox. So what if I could go back in time then and basically make it so my grandfather was never born, so I was never born, so then I couldn't go back in time to go make it so my grandfather was never born. And there's some really simple ways to resolve that. But for a long time, scientists didn't want to try to resolve it because they wanted it to be that there couldn't be time travel or there couldn't be retrocausality because of these causal loops just were thought to be immediately paradoxical, but that's actually changing, so that's exciting.
Well, okay, so explain to me if for those out there where the future is not predetermined, so there's no way to be precognitive, there's no way to have premonitions because the future hasn't happened yet. Now, I understand the past has happened, right? The past, right now, we're in the now. 2 seconds ago, that's there. So that's an obvious thing. We don't know about the future questions or where the show is leading into the future. So I understand the argument. But yet, premonitions and precog is real, and we've all shared in that. Right, so it's a weird situation that we find ourselves in, and indeed, that may be a paradox right there.
Right, and I think that there has to be sort of a difference between the way things appear to us on a day-to-day basis, which is this, the past is what just happened, the future is the thing that we don't know, that story, and what the actual sort of story of the universe is. So we have to separate our daily experience of and almost what we've been taught about time from what's actually happening. So there's almost no evidence in physics that there's some kind of privileged now, right? In fact, there's a lot of evidence that there is no privileged present moment. And so already we have a little disconnect, and I'll just say little generously. It's a huge disconnect between human experience, which is only of the now, and physics, which is not of the now at all. And so based on that, you can already see that there needs to be different views of what's going on in time, and then from that, what's going on in causality. And so these paradoxes really seem to come from trying to cross between these two views, trying to apply our experiential sort of daily, almost folk wisdom about how time works based on our perception, and to assume that that's a correct understanding of how the universe is working, trying to apply that to sort of the natural world as if the universe really is working that way, and therefore it's problematic to do anything differently. So I think it's really important to make that distinction. I'm not sure I answered your question, but for some reason, that's what came out of my mouth.
No, and see, and that's what's interesting about this, because we have the possibility of, very strong one, of an alternative parallel world and timeline that's running in an infinite amount to our left and right of us, with very, very slight variations of each one. And that as we look into the future, we could be looking at an alternative timeline, and that is part of the premonition or part of the precog, and therefore nothing is predetermined because we're looking at alternative versions of ourselves.
Right, that's like the multi-universe sort of response to the paradox. But there's other responses too.
Such as?
So another response is sort of the we have like signposts that are important events, and those important events have to happen. But how you get from one event to one signpost to the other is loosey-goosey. So the ball has to roll down the hill, but it can go through this path or it could go through that path. And that way you can kind of keep free will and you can keep some lack of complete determinism, although certain key events are determined. So it's like a have it both ways kind of scenario.
And what if you manage to go off of that path completely to prevent this major signpost in the future? What happens? Does the universe implode?
Well, I think in that model, that doesn't happen. So those signposts are those signposts, and they're predetermined. And what's not predetermined is the path between them. So if you go off the path completely, what that would mean is that model is wrong, right?
Okay, so if we went backwards, now let's go and look at the. I've got 4 minutes, so we'll get this.
Let's figure it out.
Yeah, if we go backwards and to go and visit the grandfather paradox, which has been done a zillion times, but you go and you're on the street corner, you've got the gun out, you're ready to shoot your grandfather in the head, but the gun jams. Right? He still makes it across this street to the theater to meet your grandmother, and they have their first date and everything happens. Right? So the gun jams. Now you try to push him in front of the bus, but you twist your ankle. So that doesn't happen, right? Something will always prevent the paradox from happening.
Right. That's one model. That's sort of the Doctor Who model and the Back to the Future model, and that's sort of the model that's easy to think about, is that something will always prevent the paradox. And that's kind of this model, that there's many ways something can happen, but that event has to happen. The problem, of course, with that model is, how do you choose these signpost events? Why is one event more important than another event? How do you choose what matters in that system? And that's confusing. And
the other answer to this would be, you do kill your grandfather.
Yeah, right.
In that timeline.
Right, now you're in a different timeline.
Right. It would automatically update and has nothing to do with the you now. And you wouldn't be able to see yourself in the past if you did.
If you're not doing physical time travel, yeah. If you're doing sort of mental time travel in that body. I mean, so it's tricky, right?
It is. I mean, because I would love to go back. If I could go back in time, see, this is where things get so complicated, that I know a lot about the guitar, right? I know all these modern techniques with the guitar. If I took what I know now and went back to 1975, I'm the rock god of all rock gods.
Right, hot tub time machine. There you go.
Right. But does that mean I have to go back in time and kill myself? And, right? Or if I go back in time, am I the younger me? Or if I'm going back in time, am I still 55 years old? And that doesn't hold water.
It probably depends on which version of our time travel or future time travel machines you're hopping into, right? One version is just mental time travel. One is just information and emotions, where you don't even take your memory with you. Then one, you take your memory with you, and then later you take your memory and information and emotions and your body. So it all depends on which version you're jumping in.
Right. Or you take a Van Halen CD. You go back to 1970, you find Jimi Hendrix before he dies, you give him the CD, and then you disappear, right? So now he can listen to Van Halen, and maybe Hendrix wouldn't have died. And now, that's
He's
just
singing Jump.
Yes. Yeah, Panama comes out on Bridge of Sighs. So there you go. Let's take a break right here, Julia. Great conversation. So when we come back, let's get into the time travel side of all of this. I can't wait. If I can talk to a PhD about time travel, I've won. And that's what this show is about. More with Julia Mossbridge after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Teppy. Do you want to be an official FADERNIGHT? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Are you intrigued by paranormal talk radio? You'll love the new paranormal radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the paranormal radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the paranormal radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Dr. Julia Mossbridge is here. We're talking about her new book, written with Teresa Chung, The Premonition Code. It is amazing. The links for the book are right up there at JimmyChurchRadio.com, and it is highly recommended. Amazing book. Great job, by the way, Julia. The book is absolutely phenomenal. Now, let's talk about let's talk about time travel. And now, I laid it out in the beginning of the show. I'll give you the very abridged version of it right now. It's like the ultimate paradox. Now, Relativity. If you just stop right there, no time machines involved, you just need a little dose of the speed of light. But let's say, and it's the ultimate paradox, that you and I and Rita, right? We jump on a ship, we head off, boom, achieve the speed of light. We do a U-turn. We come back, a few years later, planet Earth. It's now 1,000 years in the future, 10,000 years. We are now time travelers. You and I and Rita have just aged a few years. We still look young and vibrant and cool. Nothing has changed really in our world. But we arrive back here. Thousands of years have passed. Now we are time travelers. That's it. We have gone to the future. There's nothing to argue here. And we find out when we get back that we're not stuck, that time travel has been achieved, and they take us and then send us back to today. Holy crap. Right? now, and all of this is not out of the realm of possibility. That theoretically, on paper, all of this works. Einstein said it was so. Now, why? This is the paradox. Why haven't we seen time travelers from the future?
Why do we think we haven't?
That's why you're a guest on this show.
I mean, so yeah. I mean, we're already piecing together some of the pieces for time travel. We've got mental time travel. We're talking about precognition, right? We've already got physical time travel on the quantum scale, where a quantum effect from what we call a future particle seems to be affecting a particle in the past, even after that particle ceases to exist. So that's definitely time travel on the quantum scale. We have informational time travel on the quantum scale coming soon, I believe, because we have teleportation of particles from one place to another. And we also have this physical time travel on the quantum scale. So it feels to me we're getting closer and closer to sort of the big shebang, which is physical time travel, taking a body and its contents, information, so the mental, informational pieces, and transporting them in time.
You're good. You don't have to move. It's okay.
So
what is going on there?
I'm sorry. I'm at Ions late, and there's a guy cleaning up. So
that is
anyway.
hilarious. It sounded like a ginormous building too. So you're at Noetic right now.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. You know what I want to do there? We're going to come back to this in a second. I would love, I don't know if if Dean would allow us to do this, but maybe it happens. Yeah. I would like to get up there with a few of my friends, walk out there at night with our night vision and look up at the sky and see what happens up there over the compound.
Well, so okay. You're getting me excited because two things. So one, that speaks to the question you asked about, so why haven't we seen people? Now, if you were traveling in time, if we actually in the future, let's say we do a physical time travel and you come back now, how would you interact with people? So that you don't get killed and you don't get thrown into a mental institution, right? You'd have to find creative ways to do that. So one way is to try to blend in and know enough about the culture of the time that you're visiting to blend in. Another way is to sort of blend in, but then leak pieces of useful information that is the reason that you time traveled in the first place. And another way is to completely not blend in and just be completely bizarre and no one will believe you, like be an alien, right? Anyway, so we were talking about this, about, time travel and ways that you would do that and appear. We were all sitting in the hot tub here at Ions. There's a big sort of rectangular hot tub, and it was some kind of staff retreat. And I had this feeling, and I said, okay, everyone, I don't know, let's just look at the sky. I feel like something's going to go on. So we're looking at the sky, and about 2 minutes later, this blue flash of beautiful light came up over the tree that was slightly to our left, and we all saw it, and then we talked about it, and that was that. But it was a very interesting experience, and
I love it when it happens. And I've had the same types of things go down, And when you go and you tell somebody that experience like you did right here, I mean, I just told you, I love it when it happens. It's so hard to the uninitiated to even understand what you are trying to say. Yeah. They don't get it. But when it does happen like that, you just got to just sit back, kind of like a deja vu, right? Yeah. And just enjoy the experience.
Well, that's what happened. It's like, that was my experience. It doesn't mean anything, but that was my experience and what's going on.
Well, now, if we were all coming back on our round trip at light speed, we would, first off, it would take us probably weeks to slow down. They would know that the ship is approaching. We would tell them, hey, we left in 2020 on this ship. We went out at light speed, and now we're coming back. This is who we are. And maybe they would have records of our launch from 10,000 years prior, and they would be expecting us. There's that part of it. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that in the future, certainly they have conquered time travel in a mechanical, physical sense.
Yeah.
You know, and so we wouldn't necessarily be locked into the future, and then we would come back here, and then we would tell everybody about the experience from the future. And that's
it's depending on the culture, yeah. I mean, I don't think we're at a culture right now where if you came back, I mean, unless it was something that was physical like that, your relativity, this happened, we would need to have a record of it to believe that that was what happened, right?
So what's your answer to that? Do you think that in the future they have conquered time travel, and that time travel is a reality right now, today, and there are time travelers walking around us right now?
I think that in the future we have conquered time travel, and I think that one consequence of having that belief, we've done some calculations or have had some horrible mistakes and realized that was not a good idea, or we are, and that's a normal piece of what's going on. In fact, I make a proposition in the book that I think about periodically, which is, what if there's some sort of agreement that informational time travel, sort of sending back bits of information rather than sending back actual humans, is the way to go. And you could imagine why that would be sort of a smarter thing to do, right? I'm going to
shoot him a dirty look.
Yeah, or just something like, no, maybe it's not a great idea to invent the, atom bomb or whatever it is. And just get that piece of information back there that might be more efficient. And in that case, we should be able to see sort of changes in probabilities of what would be expected based on the past compared to what actually happens. And so it seems to me you could write some kind of algorithm to sort of look at probabilities of world events and see if there are some interesting shifts that are kind of unpredictable. And if they increase during a particular time, that might be a time of lots of information being leaked back. It seems like there's something you could do there.
Well, and then we have another thing to look at here. And if we go into the extreme future of us, versions of us, stretching out 10,000 years or further, that we may not even have these physical bodies anymore. We may have seriously transitioned into something else that we wouldn't even recognize today. And those time travelers coming back, they may be the future humans, but they wouldn't be humans that we recognize. And it could be even something totally energetic and not physical at all. And therefore, that would answer all of Stephen Hawking's questions about, his time traveler party that nobody showed up. Well, he may not even have seen them.
Right, exactly. Well, and also maybe no one wants to go to the party because they're pointing out that he was wrong. I mean, so you never know what the time travel politics are like. But assuming that human beings are always going to have to inhabit their bodies to be conscious in the future is probably an assumption that we make now because we don't think otherwise. It's hard to think about not having a body. But it's quite possible in the future that we figure out how to deal with consciousness without having to lug around these bodies all the time. in that case, why would we have to time travel with our bodies? That's not very efficient. You have to feed them.
And then we have time travel of the mind. And you brought this up. I brought it up in my opening statements tonight. That's the other part that I really, really dig. And that is seeing the past or seeing the future and using your mind for this. And you're taking the physicality out of it. And not only that, but you're taking the technical things that you would have to overcome too as well. The position of the Earth in the universe and the solar system and where it's at. You're taking that part of it out. And now it's only time travel of the mind.
Right. Well, we have this habit. Here's the thing. I think we have this habit where we take what's going on in the physical world and sort of the rules for, if I drop a ball, it falls to the ground or whatever, the rules for the physical world, and we assume that those rules apply to the mental world, but we have no evidence that they do. In fact, we have evidence that they don't. So we assume that because, I'm physically separate from you, then that also means that our minds don't connect in any way. Or because my body feels different on day 3 as compared to day 4, that there's no kind of mental connection between those 2 days. And that's just sloppy thinking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we call mental time travel is not making that assumption. So instead, it's like, okay, so what is the connection between today and tomorrow mentally? Maybe there's some kind of a resonance or something where whatever the event is today, or if I'm in a certain location today, I can get information about something that's similar, that's sort of stimulating that resonance that's happening tomorrow. And that really is mental time travel, or remembering the future in a way, or precognition. And then there's mental time travel to the past. You'll be sitting there and then you'll have a memory of, when you were 7 years old and you were riding your bike and you fell down. And it's very real.
And is there a way have you met somebody that has gone to the distant past? Through the mind. And I'm talking about the distant past. Let's talk ancient Egypt or the crucifixion, or hung out with Da Vinci.
I met a guy who is a researcher in precognition who had an experience of standing on top of a hill in, I don't know if it was Mesopotamia or someplace that, you've heard of from middle school social studies. That doesn't exist anymore by the same name. And his experience was interacting with the natural environment, but not interacting with any people. So that's the only person I've known to have had that experience. And I was impressed with the realism with which he spoke about it. He was absolutely convincing in his discussion of what had happened to him.
How far back did he go?
I don't remember, but it was like more than 5,000 years.
We have so many guests on this show that have time traveled to the distant past and interacted and observed things. And in a very, like you're saying here, in a very vibrant, detailed manner. And the descriptions of this, I don't discount what is going on, but I think that in large part it's not necessarily controllable, or is something that is it's an accident, right?
I think for most people it's spontaneous. Certainly it was for this guy.
Right.
And what I've read about for people who have these experiences, like all of a sudden, whoops, you look around and you're seeing things and you're hearing things and you're smelling things and you're really feeling like you're in a different place, and it is a thing that happened to you.
Now, there are other historical moments where we have made enormous jumps in technology and knowledge, and that's been part of our evolution. And we can go back to different specific instances of, say, fire or the wheel or the domestication of wheat or mathematics or astronomy, physics, mathematics, all of these, seminal moments throughout human history where some have suggested, we made ET contact. Others will say that it was information from God, from the heavens. Well, then there's the other part with each one of these where you could insert the word time traveler in there,
right.
and come up with the same results. What do you think about that?
I think that's a likely possibility. I think that I was just chatting today with a guy who had visited a pyramid in Egypt and had noticed that one of the drawings on, or sort of, I guess, the art on the side of one of the rooms had an image of what looked like a transformer with electricity coming from it and something that looked like an electrical outlet. And he thought, well, is that just coincidence? Or because in ancient Egypt, this should not be something that exists? Or is that time travel? Or do we have sort of transformers and electricity because of information that's coming from some common other source that keeps coming back to us?
Well, we have to look at it that way, Julia, in that it may, in each one of these instances, it's information from the future. Maybe somebody saw the future and they tried to figure it out, and so they built a wheel because they saw cars, right? In a premonition. So now they're building carts, 3,000 years ago. Okay, that makes sense. And then you have somebody else like Da Vinci, who clearly was seeing things and designing things that were not part of his world. Helicopters, tanks,
yes.
Machine guns.
That's right.
And so was he visited by a time traveler? Or did he have a premonition and precog of the future where he saw a future world and he was just trying to replicate it where he was at? But certainly something happened there that was magical, and I don't know which way to go with it.
Well, and I'm not sure there's so much of a difference. I think it's almost, again, it's one of these things where if you're focused on time as this linear past, present, future, then there is a difference between receiving information from the future and a time traveler offering information, because it's like a direction of causality. Are you receiving, or are you on the end of an action? But in a way, those are the same thing.
Well, and we haven't even, what is time to you? What's your definition of time?
All right, let's get down to that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, what is time? And I used to have a good answer for that. And the more I learn, the more I have a really horrible answer for that, which is time is a multifaceted, time is not one thing. It's a multifaceted construct and experience, and with many components that seem to be related in some way, but not always. So there's experiential components like order, like A came before B, and there's experiential components like duration. So this conversation lasts a certain amount of time. And there's experiential components like synchrony, like this came at the same time as that, or not, which is similar but not exactly the same as order. And so those are sort of experiential components. And then there's the construct components about, okay, so if one thing can become before another thing, that means things come at different times. And if things come at different times, that means there's some time that we're going to label now, and that's different from other times. And if there are other times that are not now, we're going to call the one that we remember the past, and we're going to call the one that we don't generally remember the future. And if there's the past and the future, then that means there's some kind of progression. Now, we don't really know that there's any kind of progression. We don't really know that the past and future actually exist. But these are sort of constructs that we draw from our daily experience, sort of the folk wisdom of time. And then there's these physical things that we could sort of look at and pretend we're a fly on the wall and watch as if being an observer doesn't affect anything, which is false. But let's say we do that. Then we could develop these sort of, we might want to call them other concepts or other constructs about time. But the problem is they're all in the context of our perception. So they're all in the context of these experiential pieces. So time is almost like time is almost like saying the same thing as experience. I mean, it's very hard to differentiate what someone means when they say experience if they don't mean basically feeling time as it goes by. I don't know the difference between those two things. I know.
This is my take. I just want the audience to, as simple as it may be.
Yeah.
Time to me is just a watch. That's what time is. Time is a clock. Time is something that we were given to measure. That's it. And without clocks or watches to remind us of what time it is or how much time has passed or how we can anticipate how long the next hour is going to be, is only because of clocks and watches, the mechanical representation of it. Other than that, time doesn't really exist because time is different to everybody. If you try to have somebody gauge how much time has passed, it's all relative to that individual, and nobody is right about it. And if you take the sun out of it, right? If you take the sun out of it and put somebody in a room without any clocks in it,
it's different.
They're not going to even have a clue to what's really going on.
Right. Well, I mean, their circadian rhythm will gradually start shifting. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is taught. And there are cultures in which, so I agree with that assessment of a lot of it is this construct that's taught culturally and sort of, yeah, but mostly within our culture and linguistically, I guess. But there are cultures in which you don't use the past tense unless you know about something. So as soon as you know about something, then it goes in your past tense. But if someone else doesn't know about it, it's still in their present tense. So it's like if I asked you who won the Detroit Tigers game, you might say, or I could say who will win, and you would understand that even though half an hour ago you figured out that the Detroit Tigers won. You'd say the Detroit Tigers won. And I said, oh, I'm so excited that they'll win. And then, okay, now I know, okay, now they won. So there's cultures in which it's the individual knowledge of an event that puts it into the past, not some sort of group shared idea about.
Right.
Yeah.
That's heavy. Yeah, that's heavy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you just made me think.
Oh, good.
But that's a really heavy way to look at it, because it is exactly what the experience is, or the experience that was. Let's take a quick break right here. We've got to do that, and then when we come back, I'm going to talk about some historical events that I want to remind everybody of when it comes to the possibility of time travel, because it's been around for thousands of years. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Julian Mossbridge. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, lime scale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRAradio.com.
Does your basement or crawl space have a damp, musty smell? Well, watch out. That's a sign of too much moisture and not enough ventilation. And that can mean increased mold growth and the buildup of harmful toxins and gases. Don't bother with a dehumidifier. It just circulates the same unhealthy air. Now there's a better way to remove these dangers and odors. It's with the computerized Wave Moisture Control Unit that reduces moisture and expels pollutants.
We replaced our old dehumidifier with the Wave unit, and in only 3 weeks, our basement is dry and the musty smell is gone.
Wave units require no maintenance, no buckets of water or filters, and costs only pennies a day to run. Breathe better, live healthier with an affordable, no-maintenance Wave unit. Call 888-717-WAVE, 888-717-WAVE, or visit dryhealthyhome.com, dryhealthyhome.com.
Ride the wave. Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B blend.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system. And get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. And like me, you'll be glad you did.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, your time-traveling host. Our guest tonight, Julia Mossbridge, PhD. We're talking about her new book that she wrote with Teresa Chung. I'm holding it up to the cameras right here. It's the Premonition Code. The book is phenomenal. And time travel, Julia, I discuss on this show all the time. Going back to the very first broadcast of the show, it was one of my interests over the years. And I look back to different historical situations. Every culture, whether it was ancient India, ancient Japan, Greece, Rome, Egypt, of course, all had their own time travelers. And it was part of, for them, not only their ancient writings, but part of the historical record. And I have always asked the question, were these genuine time travelers, or was it their interest in time travel? And if you go back to the way that cultures were thinking 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, I don't know if science fiction came into play. And to talk about time travel and time machines and the ability to do this, was it just because there was always this fascination with time travel, or that time travelers were actually part of what was going on and they just wrote about it? What do you think?
Well, time travel, I used to think as a kid, the best way for science to proceed is to not do any science except for try to solve time travel, because once you solve time travel, you can do all the other stuff you missed, right? Like you can go back and cure all the people of cancer once you figure out cancer and stuff like that. So it basically solves all the other problems by basically giving you more time. So it seems to me that eventually we'll figure that out. And if we do, there's no reason to believe we won't have traveled back to whatever time, assuming that there aren't limits on that.
Now, what about some of the more modern versions of time travelers, like John Titor, for instance?
John Titor, you're gonna have to remind me who that is.
Ooh, okay, that's a whole nother show. Okay, John Titor started posting. He surfaced in 2001. And claimed to be from the year 2036, and that he was posting on some bulletin boards and some forums, and posted photographs. He posted the manual for his time machine. He posted a picture of his time machine, and explained how he did it. Very technical in nature. He said that he had traveled back to 1975 to get this IBM computer that they needed in 2036 to fix the computer issues that they had then in 2036, because they went through a nuclear war. Society had changed. Like 2/3 of the world's population had died. It was a different world then, but they had figured out time travel. So he had to go back to 1975. He stopped by the year 2000 for personal reasons, and one, to visit his family, see himself, who was a youngster. And when he met himself, he was introduced to his younger self as his uncle, right? And so he stopped by just to let everybody know what was going on, and anybody could ask questions. And so he hung out for a few months in 2000, and it was riveting, Julia, riveting. And the crazy thing is, he said, okay, well, you know what? This is like my last post. I got to go back to the future, and, I'll see you guys later. And then, poof, gone. Never posted again. He left us with these photographs, with these technical manuals, and other things that were very direct. But we have those, but he's gone, and he hasn't come back. And the other crazy part about John Titor is that if it was some elaborate hoax, nobody's been busted. It's one of the most fascinating stories out there. So, yeah, there you go. There's your homework tonight.
Okay, I just Googled it while you were talking.
Yeah, I feel bad for you, because the next couple of weeks you're going down the John Titor rabbit hole.
Well, and it looks to me like he's made some predictions that were incorrect, and you could argue either way on that. You could argue, well, so that shows that he's bogus, or you could argue, well, that shows that when you start to mess with time, it changes some of what happens, right? So there's no way to really test it. So I guess my thought is, he's either a person who wants a lot of attention, or he's delusional, or he's a person who's actually a time traveler. And so those are sort of the three possibilities, right?
Well, no, you're barely at the surface. Oh,
there's more.
Oh, you have no idea. You have no idea. See, the thing is about John Titor is the stuff that he discussed, which was hardcore physics, quantum theory, quantum mechanics, of course, gravity and time travel and those complications and how they solved it. It's all there. But then you get into the computer aspects of it and the knowledge of the computer world, and going back to this 1975 computer, this IBM 5100, there's that part of it. Then you have the model making. Somehow this time machine, the photographs are there. That was built. And the graphics, the design, and all of that. Then you have the design of the manuals and the technical writing that is involved there, and everything else that comes into play. It wasn't just one person. We're talking about a team of people to get all of this stuff done and the hoax pulled off. Nobody's been busted. Nobody's come forward. Where is the time machine? Let's say it was a hoax. Well, somebody would have surfaced by now going, here's the time machine. This is how we did it. We built it like this. We did the graphics here. This is how we took the photographs. This is how we did the laser stuff. This is how we did this. And this is how we did the science. This is how we did the physics of it. But nobody's been caught. Nobody's been caught. So it's if it was a hoax, it wouldn't have been one person. So
if you were, let's say it's real. I mean, I don't know anything about this, so I'm just shooting from the hip. But let's say it's real. We need to think about what are the motivations about him revealing his status, because I'm sure if we get time travel down for physical time travel, people will have traveled here who haven't revealed their status. So what is it? I feel like it's important for us to understand if this is a real time traveler, right? Mm-hmm. Why this particular time traveler needed to reveal his status and what that tells us about what was going on there. Is that like a trial balloon, right?
Totally. And so one of the, and I suggest this to anybody when they go in, it's like John Titor 101. The first thing that you have to do to take it all in is look at his post. So go back to the original post. Hello, it's me. I'm here. I'm a time traveler. Ask me any question you want. Go back to that first post and go through all of the threads and go through each one and see how he interacted with everybody and answered their questions. He dealt with paradoxes. He dealt with not only the possibility of his predictions being wrong or right, but how he dealt with it with alternative timelines. There's that part of it. And then the other thing that, and all of this is in his post, when he's got a time machine. So if you go and he talked about physically what happens, when he time travels, all of the stuff that he dealt with gravity and the positioning and how you ended up on terra firma and not in the middle of the ocean or out in the middle of space floating around, right? Because the Earth is moving. And so he talked about that science of it in a way that nobody had dealt with time machines or time travel in the past. And it was in such a direct manner that it forced everybody to step back and go, well, man, this has got to be real. Because it had never been discussed before. It's a very interesting situation. Now, again, he's never been busted, right? Nobody has been able to figure this out. Some think that they have, but it's none of it is concrete. It's very interesting. It's one of the crazy, and for you not knowing about John Titor, which I find really interesting, is that you're going to go and check this out and look into it. You're educated, you're a professional, and you're going to come to your own conclusions too. So I can't wait to talk to you in the future about John Titor.
Cool. All right. Well, so I will check it out. But I think that what's it's intriguing to think about sort of the motivations behind things. And so one can imagine if there's some kind of, if we figure out physical time travel that includes sort of containing your emotions, your consciousness, your memories, basically taking you physically back in time, that there will be people who come back for egoic reasons and people who come back for utilitarian reasons and people that come back for sort of self-transcendent reasons. And so all just like there's people who do all sorts of different things for different motivations now. And so I'm just curious about what are the motivations to reveal your status as a time traveler? How is that an egoic sort of I know more than you do kind of thing? Or are there actual... Yeah, I think it's really important to think about that.
Well, and you brought this up at the beginning of the show. If you are a time traveler, do you want to reveal who you are? Look, if you, being who you are today, and you went back to Jerusalem, to the crucifixion, you're going to stand out, right? And that's it. You've got to figure out a way not to blend in with society, but not to be seen at all whatsoever. You don't want to blend in. You don't want to be seen at all. Right. That's it. That your life would end at that point. But today there was a couple of I'll just get specific. The Rendlesham Forest UFO incident that happened in the early 80s, 1980. That incident was classified as a UFO landing. Yep. And the government did the reports are there, the eyewitnesses are there, we know when and where it happened, that's all documented. But Jim Peniston said that when he went up and touched the craft that he got a download, and that information that hit him was that they told him that they weren't alien, they weren't ETs, but they were us from the future.
Do you know that I talked with Jeff Kripal, who studies this stuff, and I was at a conference where he was, and we were talking about this, and I said, I was so proud of myself. I said, I have this theory that, ETs are us from the future, and he looked at me and he said, that's the number one most mundane explanation I hear. So here I was all excited about that theory. And he's like, yeah, a lot of people think that. That's pretty common, which is interesting that that's occurring to a lot of people. It doesn't mean it's right. It's just interesting. I think that is a totally reasonable explanation of that phenomenon.
Well, it resolves the distance and time aspect of traveling to or in between the stars, that the ETs that we see today are us and they're from here. So that resolves these vast distances of space.
Right.
And I could understand that. I really can. But if we are like you in the hot tub time machine there up at Noetic, that's an example of something that's happening where quite possibly they weren't traveling vast distances. They were actually here, and they showed you at that moment. And it resolves all of these complex questions.
Well, it sounded also like they were listening to our conversation. So it was like they're listening to us talk about how would you come back? Well, probably as an alien. Well, I feel like something's going to happen. Well, boom. So yeah, it does exactly. There's this also idea of, I was talking with folks today, mathematicians and physicists some of them are fond of creating other dimensions or thinking about the necessity of having other dimensions beyond the three of space and one of time. And certainly you could also tell the story, and this might be an equivalent story, that ETs are extra dimensional beings. And maybe that's the same thing as saying it's us time traveling from the future. And maybe we use extra dimensions to do that. So I think a lot of these concepts could come together and become less complicated if we could work it out. A lot of this, I just want to say, this is all really speculative, that what we're talking about, but it's all really intriguing. And eventually, at some point, we may be able to do empirical tests to find out if this stuff is happening. And right now, that's just not the case.
What about the big questions, and which is, the military aspect and the agency aspect DARPA, too, as well, in Sandia. Do you think that the military and the Pentagon has developed a method of time travel? And certainly Precog and Premonition and remote viewing comes into play, too, as well.
Yeah, I mean, so sorry, I want to unpack your question because sort of part of the question is what's going on now in those agencies as it relates to precog and telepathy and using all sorts of ways to gather information.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
And then the other is sort of what is the potential? I mean, I sort of read that between the lines, but I think you're also asking that, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So in terms of what's happening now, I don't have any kind of top secret or classified clearance, so I have no idea. But I have some friends in the military who would not share anything with me if something was going on. But it is fairly clear to me that there's a lot of interest at different levels of the military. Dean Radin and I talk about this a lot. That we get requests from different levels of the military to talk about various things, and it's definitely the case that there's interest. It's also probably the case if the military works the way I think it does, and if these organizations work the way I think they do, that there's multiple redundancies of people looking into each of these right now, and have been for probably decades. We do know that, of course, I'm confident most of your listeners know about the Stargate project.
Sure.
Grill Flame, etc. Right? That was going on in the 80s and 90s, but there's no reason to believe that's not been advanced now. It would be insane, really, to not advance that in a way and keep looking at it, but just not as publicly. So it seems to me that makes a lot of sense. It would be a sane way to spend money. It would be a not very expensive way to spend money to just continue researching that and using it operationally as appropriate. And in terms of the future, I feel like when you combine artificial intelligence with these skills of precognition, telepathy, mind over matter, that will be the way of the future is collaborations between these human skills of consciousness and artificial intelligence that can guide, where the information needs to go and how it can be best used. So I'm talking right now in the best case scenario where all those organizations are working towards the betterment of humankind and helping the human race. It's not, of course, the case, but it is the way I like to think. In terms of thinking, as a futurist, I like to think of the positive future. So I know that there are people in all of those organizations and more who are really committed to creating a better world, and so that is a fact. And
I think I heard you say that the military has reached out to you and Noetic and asked questions. Did you say that?
Yeah, periodically, different branches of the military. So, for instance, there's the Office of Naval Research, which has this intuition grant or fellowship program out, multi-million-dollar deal where they're trying to understand essentially spidey sense. They know that certain people survive in the military because of what they call spidey sense, which is a really intuition, and to try to understand that. So I've talked to several people about that, but and certainly that happens a lot more to Dean because he's more well known in sort of the general field of anomalous cognition and anomalous events. So we both of us, we kind of assume that the military should be interested in this, that they are interested in it. They have some programs that maybe aren't public, and sort of wonder if they're not interested, that would be crazy. And we also know a lot of really good people in the military who are constantly asking questions and seem like they are interested and are pursuing this.
It seems like you're dancing just a little bit right now. It seems like you're dancing, and when you start to dance, that's where I go for it. So let's continue.
I could tell. I could tell when I was talking. You're like, yeah, you're there. Here come the tea.
They have to be interested, and you brought up one point that is the obvious reasons. It's much cheaper.
Yeah.
You don't have to invest in the hardware if you have a human and their mind, and that's where the cost is. You don't have to send anybody overseas to look at a military base if you can have somebody remote view that has precog abilities here that can tell you what's going on. You don't have to send assets into danger to go and look at this if you could do everything right here, or if you can predict what is going to happen with somebody's government or military, and you can do that here and not involve the expense and putting lives in danger.
Well, right. I mean, it's like the obvious thing. To the extent that it works, sure, it's really useful. But the thing is, it's kind of not that cut and dried. It's more like developing another source of information. It's like we can launch a satellite and get some information, but then we have human intelligence, we get more information. Well, then we can also use precognition, then we get more information. But you don't want to just go on precognition because it's too fuzzy.
But you are confirming with us that they do have programs in place that are dealing with premonition, precognition, telekinesis, and remote viewing.
No. I'm not going to go that far. I am confirming that it makes total sense, and I have deep suspicion that that's the case.
Well played. Now, okay, we are in danger of running out of time. Can I keep you for another 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah, whatever you want. It's delightful.
Because I want to talk about the Mandela Effect. And,
okay, cool.
and we didn't get a chance to get into it. So let's set up the Mandela Effect, and then when we come back, we'll get further into it. But the Mandela Effect is either millions and millions of people are schizophrenic and have lost their minds, or there is something going on here and we are recognizing it. What do you think is happening with the Mandela Effect?
Oh, I think that is precognition. So, for instance, there's the 51 to 52 states thing.
Right.
So I've had that all my life.
Right.
And I think it's because in the future, I've always thought since I was a kid, what? There's only 50 states? No, there's 52. And I still make that mistake. And I found out that it was common. And so that's an example of the Mandela Effect. It's one of the most basic examples. And I think it's because in the future there are. So I think it's just standard information that we're getting. For most of the history of the United States, there are 52 states.
Okay, so let's take a break right here. Now that's Mandela into the future. And I get that. And so that's precog, and it's confusing us today, and it is confusing you. I get that. And when we come back, we'll talk about the Mandela Effect with the past. And
cool.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you, Julia. I don't know if it's, and we'll discuss all of this. I don't know if it's time travelers coming back and that have altered the past and have made mistakes, or if it is the blending of maybe two alternative worlds and we're getting overspray, if you will. But we'll discuss all of that. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dr. Julia Mossbridge. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously, go Beckley Teppy. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi folks, CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and my family is safe because of Numana Emergency Food Storage. Just go to the Numana banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Promo code Jimmy10.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Fade to Black, doing a little overtime with our guest tonight, Dr. Julia Mossbridge. We're talking about her book, The Premonition Code. There it is right there. The links to it are over at JimmyChurchRadio.com. It's a great book, by the way. And now I want to jump into the Mandela Effect. And Julia, I'll tell you, we did so many shows on this over the last year or so. And I am thoroughly convinced something is going on because of my own personal experiences that I can't explain with myself. When we talk about the past and my memories. And I know that I partied a lot and I've done some things in my life that I'm not that proud of. But I've had very, very clear, distinct memories on things that turn out that they weren't the way that I remember them. And they're very significant. And I could almost quiz you right now on the Mandela Effect. And I'm not even so sure that you'll pass the quiz. And,
I'm not sure either.
Yeah.
You want to do it?
Well, I could. Okay. The Monopoly Man. Does he have a monocle or not?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yes or no?
Yeah, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the song "We Are the Champions" by Queen.
Yeah.
You know the song. You've sung
Yeah.
it your entire life.
Yeah.
Right? And during the song and at the end where "We are the champions," what's the next line?
My friend. And we'll keep on fighting until the end.
There is none. It just ends
you mean
with
at the end where it
champions.
goes, "We are the champions," and it just kind of fades off? Yeah, that's true.
Well, no, I just reminded you of that. Okay?
But so the stuff with the past. So the stuff with the right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Right. So how is this not just crappy memory?
Exactly. Exactly.
That doesn't have to be too mysterious. Right?
It doesn't. It doesn't. But your memory, your response was instant. Like with the monocle. I mean, he never had a monocle, but for some reason.
Well, it's kind of like this So to me, that's more like an archetype. Like you're blurring an archetype.
Sure.
Like the monocle, the rich guy with the monocle, with the hat always goes with the monocle in my mind. So I'm going to have a misremembered. Now, I understand there's this other explanation, which is an alternative reality or some kind of reality shift. It's very difficult to prove, but the most simple explanation is crappy memory that weaves in cultural. And frankly, that's the best explanation for the 52 states too, right? Although still, of course, because I have my bias towards precognition, I think it's that. I feel like what's exciting is to understand what's really going on, but we don't know what's really going on. So we have all these different explanations.
Sex in the City. How many times did you watch that show?
0.
0.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Isn't it called Sex in the City?
Nope. And there's another example. And the thing is...
Wait, what's it called?
Sex and the City.
Oh, right.
All I'm saying is, when you start to look at all of these examples, we're talking about... So everybody's memory is just wrong, right? It's something that I look at this when we look at such cultural iconic moments, like Darth Vader. Everybody knows he says, "Luke, I'm your father," right? In the famous scene, "Luke, I'm your father," right? And we all know that. And the toys that were made with, but it was never said. It's not in the movie, And it's
Wait. What was said? Because something like that was said.
He says, "No, I am your father."
Oh.
Right. But
no, I have no idea now. I'm totally confused about reality.
Yeah, and so, we can go back and you look at things like Forrest Gump, and he's, he was always, what was the line that he says? Life is like a box of chocolates, right?
Right.
Well, he never said that. Right. And we go back and go, wait a minute. He said, life is like a box of chocolates. And we all know that scene. And that's not what he said. And now we go back and you look at that clip of the movie, and he says, now life was like a box of chocolates. And that doesn't even compute with us. It's like, wait a minute. No.
So just sorry to be boring here, but I always flip back and forth between boring and interesting when I'm trying to understand something from multiple directions. So here's the boring part of me. It says, look, that's because there's a life was like a box of chocolates, was in the context of what his mother said to him. My mother always said life was like a box of chocolates. Well, but we're extracting that, and all of our brains work similarly. So we decide, well, what's really the lesson? Life is like a box of chocolates. In other words, part of it could be just that the human brains generally work similarly. And so we make similar mistakes given the same data. So I'm just saying that's the boring explanation, which is still kind of cool that we're making similar mistakes using the same data. And it's worth considering that explanation. I don't think that because an explanation is kind of cooler and more fun, this alternative realities one is clearly cooler and more fun, that is necessarily correct, you know?
Right. Well, okay. I'll give you another example. And
you're going to talk me down on this one.
Well, it's not. The point is a very simple one.
Yeah.
Now, what you are saying there, if we take that at face value and we go, okay, we're all screwed up. We all think the same messed up way, and we all figure it out on our own. Okay? And then what about the Silence of the Lambs? And Jodie Foster walks up to Hannibal Lecter and looks in, and everybody knows exactly what he says right there. He says, "Hello, Clarice." Right? And that's one of the most quoted lines in movie history. And it was never said. It wasn't even close. He said, "Good morning." Now, your methodology to figuring this out right there is thrown out the window.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends. God, I mean, so the problem is we don't understand how. I mean, I don't know. That movie was hard for me to take, and I have no memories from it except that I had to turn it off. But
well, you've seen Snow White.
Sure.
Okay.
What happens in Snow White?
Well, when the evil stepmother, right, goes up and says what in the mirror?
Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all, right?
That's right. It was never said.
Well, come on, something like that was said. So what is it that was said?
I see, but that's exactly the point. You know, what she says is magic mirror on the wall. But all I'm saying is something is changing I could go on and on and on and on.
Well, so what? Right. So one explanation is that something is changing all their memories, and maybe it's time. I mean, like I get the argument now. It's kind of like maybe there's time travel, and these small things have shifted, and we who have experienced this other reality are sort of stuck in this different time stream. So I get that. That's kind of the argument. That's a cool argument.
I don't. Those kinds of explanations to me. Yeah, I'm not. Okay, my favorite peanut butter growing up. Was Jiffy. That's what I preferred, and I preferred Jiffy extra creamy. That was my thing, and I ate it all the time. Did you ever have Jiffy peanut butter?
No, my mother wouldn't buy it, and it was called Jif, I think.
You think so? Are you sure?
I think it was called Jif. I think it was called Jif. Yeah, my mother wouldn't buy it, and so I was just like, I was jealous of the kids who got to eat Jif.
Right.
But see, it's possible, right? So I'm trying to. So I think you're saying which is correct, by the way.
See, you don't know.
No.
See, and again, it just messes. It just messes with me. And when we look at things like Interview with a Vampire. Which, I read the book and saw the movie and was a big fan of Anne Rice. And when I find out that, it was an interview with it was an interview with a vampire, it's Interview with the Vampire. I had to go back and get the book and look because there was just no way that could be. So I don't understand. And when we look at as a whole, I could refer to Twitter right now, and I am sure that everybody is giving their examples. Like, one of the ones that stumped me was, what year was the Challenger disaster? Do you remember where you were for the Challenger disaster that morning?
Yeah, I was in 4th grade looking at it. Yeah.
So what year was the 4th grade for you?
So let's see, I was like 10, so that was 1979.
Okay. Are you ready?
No, what year was it?
1985.
What?
That's right.
What year was it for you?
For me, it was, I thought it was 1984.
1985. I would have been in high school, but I was sitting in my middle school, like either 4th or 5th grade classroom.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And when I was hit with that, I know exactly where I was that morning because I know. I want to discuss you in a second. For me, I had driven my lead singer to work because he didn't have a car. And he only lived with me for 3 months. And I came home after driving him to work, and I turned on the TV, and I watched it. And to have it turn out to be, hold on for a second. Let's just go to Challenger.
Hold on, I just looked it up. January 20th, 1986?
Yeah, 1986. I thought it was 1985. Now, and I have my reasons for 1985 because I know where I was. And as it turns out, it happened a year later than my memory. You're saying 1979, and you specifically remember it in the 4th grade.
Well, I remember being in that teacher's classroom. I mean, even if I misremembered by 4 years and I was in 8th grade, I was not in high school. That's a completely different school. I mean, 1986 is the year before I graduated high school.
And you remember seeing this in the 4th grade in as a very specific class.
But let's assume my memory's wrong and it's 8th grade because that was the same school. But still, that schoolroom is a completely different school than my high school. I mean, it's just not the same building.
I'm just saying,
This is bothering me.
I know. I can't explain it.
So do other people have the experience of that? What range of times do other people have?
I've had, yeah, exactly. I've had people tell me it was, it's like pick a year, and I've had, I had a caller call in, Julia, check this out. I had a caller call in and say that they specifically remember being in science class, watching the shuttle launch, in 7th grade in what, it's like pick a year, right? 1982, 1983. And it was only at that, and they know exactly where they were at that moment, just like I do. And it has nothing to do with, January of 1986, because that puts them in another school, in another state, in another city, and that would be impossible. And for you to go directly at 1979, you said 4th grade, 1979.
Yeah.
So when I tell you it was 1986, 7 years later, I can't explain this. I just can't. And we can go with faulty memory or trying to figure stuff out. But for you, you're a professional educator. This is what you do. You've gone through, you have PhD in your name, following your name. How do you resolve this in your own mind?
Well, I've only had a few seconds to resolve it because because I hadn't heard about this Challenger thing, and I had always, I've always thought about the Mandela thing as potential precognition and potential faulty memory that's consistent across people. So I'm working on resolving it, and
yeah.
So it brings up this experience. So here's what the experience that it brings up, and then we're just so you know, like all the stuff we're talking about is so speculative from the point of view of science, and yet, of course, very interesting. So I just wanted to bring that up again. But I had this experience with my husband about 5 years ago when he had a very bad disease and was basically on the road to dying, and everyone just knew he was going to die, and he was in the hospital, and he did in fact pass out, and then he was on the road to death, and then he was on the lung transplant list, and suddenly I went to sleep and I woke up and there was a nurse telling me there were lungs for him. And then after the surgery, he survived, and it's more than 5 years later, and he's doing great. And he and I both talk about something that we can't prove, but that we absolutely both felt, which was that there was something happened. Like we both sort of describe it as like tectonic plates shifting in time or something, where in fact there was a path in which he did die, but we're not on that path. Something was shifted, and we're on this other path, and that's really how it felt. And I've had very difficult events happen in my life and that haven't felt like this, but this felt like that. And we don't know how to sort of talk about it or think about it. So that the Challenger thing, now that you've brought this to my attention, in my own experience, which is so clear, reminded me of that, of some kind of temporal tectonic plates shifting, and a different timeline being developed for people. And just maybe it's the case that our timelines don't match.
Yeah, could it be, and this is, and I'm okay with this, could it be that the contact with a parallel version of our world just got a little bit too close, and at these very specific events, something blended across. That's all. And for each of us, we're experiencing it just a little bit different. And in your situation, the Challenger accident did happen for you in 1979, because then it just blended across, and that's it. And it just happened then, and that's your experience, and that's how you remember it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm okay with that. But I would rather have that be the case than everybody be crazy, right? That's the part that I don't want to have, that we're all remembering things wrong. Well, then we have to sit here and question everything about our past, our fondest memories, and these things.
Well, I mean, we definitely don't have perfect memory. We definitely need to question and not assume that all of our memories are correct. Definitely. But when you have an important event like that, these kind of important events, you remember where you were. I remember where I was when Reagan was shot. These kind of world events you remember.
Mm-hmm. What year was he? What year was he shot?
God.
You remember where you were?
I was at my friend's house, so I don't remember the year. I remember I was at my friend Jane's house, and I used to play with Jane in. Let's see. It must have been.
Don't Google it. Don't you dare.
I'm not. I'm just sitting here trying to remember. I would play with her, and how old was I? God, I think it was, like 1980.
Well, I know where I was. I was in Fort Lauderdale my senior year. I was down there for spring break, and so that would have been February, March 1981.
Okay. So when was he shot? When was Reagan shot? Let's look it up.
Let's actually look it up now. Reagan.
March 30th, 1981. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So I believe you, because my year was a question mark. Okay. So that one doesn't, for both of us, that doesn't seem to be different. I mean, I don't know. So the idea, this brings us back to this whole thing, which is that the construct of time, the idea that just because we tend to sort of agree that today is, Wednesday, in the Western Hemisphere still, doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's having the same timeline or sharing the same timeline. So this is interesting. I never thought of the Mandela Effect as sort of a general demonstration of that people might not share the same timeline, but that's cool.
Yeah, and okay, I'll throw one more out at you. We've got 1 minute left.
Okay.
The JFK assassination. Don't look it up. Don't look at any pictures. Don't do anything.
Okay.
Okay, we all know it was a black convertible Lincoln Continental, right?
Okay, I don't know that because I don't have a sense of that.
Okay, well, okay. How many people were in the car when he was shot?
I thought 3.
Okay. I'm cool with that.
I don't know what the answer is. Do you?
6.
Really?
Exactly. Now, when a caller called in one night and hit me with that, and I know.
How many people did you say?
I said 4.
Uh-huh.
I went with 4, 2 in the front seat, 2 in the back seat. Of course, Jackie and JFK were in the back seat. But 6. It was 6. You had 2 Secret Service guys in the front. You had John Connolly and his wife in 2 middle seats, which I don't remember, and JFK and Jackie O in the back.
Oh, I see. Okay, right. That you can, I'm just thinking like a cognitive neuroscientist, that you can explain on. It's very unusual to have a convertible car that has 3 rows of seats. So you kind of edit out the middle row.
You do, except for I've watched that Zapruder film like everybody else 8 bazillion and 52 times. Yeah. Right? And you go back, and now that you know that it's 6, and you go back and you watch the Zapruder, there's 6. It's, it's just obvious. But when I was asked this question live on the air, I immediately went 4, and I named the 4 that were in the car. And I just could not believe it when I went back and watched. And then I went, and there's a couple of mistakes that have happened. I've only got 1 minute left, Julia. But I went and looked at the Life article of the assassination, and they show his car, and it's a 4-seater, right? It's a 4-seater Lincoln, and it's not 6. And it's just like, well, I don't know.
That's right. That's weird.
Yeah.
So what? Yeah. So
I know. Okay. All right. Let's do this. First off, thank you so much. And we've got Dean on the show tomorrow night. I cannot wait for that.
Oh, that's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Dean's great.
Yeah, he is. I have not interviewed him, and I've wanted to do this for so many years, but tomorrow night, Dean Radin is here. The book is The Premonition Code. I know I've got links up for it over at jimmychurchradio.com, but your website, which is mossbridgeinstitute.com, and of course, thepremonitioncode.com, and everybody can get the books and read reviews and do everything right there, right?
Absolutely. And you can practice, and you could be tested, and you can be in the Precognition Hall of Fame if you like. Jimmy, I just want to say, I love it when I get to be involved in a conversation that makes me think and in which I learn something. This makes me really happy. So thanks a lot. You made my day.
Well, that's what I do. I do the same thing. I just want to learn something. I want to come away from the show. And if you and I do that, think about it. The audience did it right along with us, and that is the gift of doing these kinds of shows and having this kind of conversation. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I'll talk to you soon, and I can't wait. Now, when next time you're on the show, we will be doing John Titor 101.
Yes, we will.
I'll talk to you so much, and I'll see you soon. And tomorrow night, Dean Radin is here. Thank you so much, Julia.
Take care.
Have a great night. She's up there right now at the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And it was so cool to hear the cleaning crew in the background. But that's where she is right now doing the show live. And tomorrow night, now, again, I want to remind everybody, the Premonition Code, you can go and get it at Amazon. The links are up at jimmychurchradio.com. But her websites are mossbridgeinstitute.com over at Jimmy Church Radio and thepremonitioncode.com. The book, I've read it from cover to cover. It is absolutely fantastic and a real page turner. And now, a couple of things really quick. I've got to get out of here. Tomorrow night, Dean Radin is going to be here. I want to remind everybody, I know Thursday night is open lines here at Fade to Black. We're not going to be doing that tomorrow night. Dean Radin is going to be here. And now we're going to be discussing not only magic, but we're going to be talking about what goes on at the quantum level, too, as well. He's been doing this research and been bringing the science forward with all of this when it comes to telekinesis and the power of the mind and magic and what is really going on and the realities of that. He's been doing it for years. Nobody better than Dean Radin when we're talking about these subjects. So with that, I'm going to get out of here. I want everybody to have just a great, fantastic night. Enjoy yourselves, and I'll see you right here tomorrow night on Fade to Black. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camurian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster, Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. I got to thank Julia Mossbridge. Amazing conversation tonight. This broadcast owned and copyrighted 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until tomorrow night, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.